Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, Anita Finley.
I have an author here who does so many other things, but I just brought the book back. We talked about it once before. Dean Webb wrote a book called You Turn to God, Wrong Ways Made Right. And, of course, it's been sponsored by Faith Farm Ministries because he is the CEO there, and he's the person who really runs so many things. I have to ask you a question. I have executive director. Is it CEO and executive director, or what is this?
Same thing. Typically in the industry, if it's a for-profit, they call them the CEO. And if it's a nonprofit, they call them executive director.
Oh, okay. Well, then we'll do both for you. So, Dean, I know that you wrote this book, and a lot of people have learned a lot from it, from the graduates, and because not everybody gets to go to the graduation as I have. But in thinking about what you're going to talk about today, the extraordinary success that you've had, and usually I always say, why does the news pick on everything that's so bad? We need to have good stories, and that's you true. Have a good story.
Yeah, we. You're referring to the NBC Lester Holt story. He does the NBC Nightly News at 6:30 Eastern, and the girl that does his anchor on Sundays and sometimes Saturdays and Sundays is Kate Snow, and he had her do a story a couple of years ago on addiction, and she went into St. Louis and found 4 heroin addicts, and she followed them around. She followed them upstairs to their apartment, and she saw them on the street and filmed them. One guy was living with his mother, and so she just followed those around, and she did a special on that, and the name of it was Hooked. And to their shock, they won the Emmy Award for that, for the new special. And this was up against the Ebola outbreak and all these other, earth-shaking stories. And they were really surprised they did Hooked, and that won the Emmy. So Lester Holt says, it's been a couple of years. Why don't you do a follow-up and see what's happened to those 4 people? Well, they traced one down. I think he'd passed away, overdosed. 2 of them were still addicted. When they got to the 4th one, they called his mother because she'd gone upstairs to her apartment, and when she'd filmed him with his brother and mother, and she says, so how's Ryan doing? She says, oh, my gosh, you won't believe how well he's doing. She said, really? She said, yeah, he is totally rehabbed. He's gone through a 9-month program, and he's now moved to another campus in Fort Lauderdale. He's gone to their mega program. He's going to IT school. And she said, well, where is this place? What's the name of this place? And she said, it's called Faith Farm Ministries. She said, Faith Farm? I've never heard of it. So anyway, she decided to come down. She called our director, and she came down to do a story on Ryan. He'd graduated from the Boynton campus and then went to Omega. All 3 campuses feed into our Omega campus down in Fort Lauderdale, to either Omega Work or Omega School. And he went into a school program. Excuse me. So he was there. And so she set up to go to the trade school and catch him in class. She came to interview the director. She came to talk to him. And here's the neat thing. If you went on YouTube and saw Ryan, he was, snot-nosed. I mean, he looked horrible in the YouTube video when he was addicted to heroin. He kept saying, no, I've just been out drinking with friends. And she knew good and well, having done 3 other stories, that he was doing heroin. So anyway, we were standing there. We had the cameraman, we had the sound man, we had Victor, the producer, and Kate Snow, and my director and myself. 6 of us were standing there. And Ryan walks up to my right, and I'm 6'2", he's 6'4". He stood there, and she was talking, and she looked up at him and says, hi, how are you doing? Kept talking, and Richard, my director, says, Kate, that was Ryan you just spoke to. And she looked at him and just teared up. She said, oh, my God, I wouldn't have recognized you. After all that filming time I did with you, I would never recognize the change in your countenance. And so it was just a really neat thing. It's supposed to air sometimes. I got an email yesterday from Victor. He says it's supposed to air in the evening news either this week or next. He said everything's getting pushed back by the Orlando massacre. and all those people killed. So we have to go with current stories. And Lester's actually been in Orlando himself doing that. But when we get a chance, it'll be sometime in the evening news this week or next, and we'll email you so you can tell your board of directors and your staff to see it. So we're kind of excited. I have no idea what the footage looks like. He's already given me permission that we can post it on our website when it's aired. Can't get all the footage that got cut on the ground, he said, of course, but anything that made the final cut for airing, you can use that. So we're really excited that we can put that story on our website for anybody who misses it and have a national news network come and do a story on somebody who got results with drug and alcohol.
And so are they going to also show other people, the other hooked people, or just strictly him?
I think they're just going to show him as a success story. I think they're doing it as a follow-up because there was a lot of stuff about her winning the Emmy for that because there was several, Ebola outbreak, and there were a lot of really current earth-shaking stories when she did that one, and it wasn't as time-sensitive, but it was powerful. And so that won the Emmy. So they felt like they needed to kind of justify the fact that they'd won the Emmy for Hooked and do a follow-up on it. And this is how it all evolved for her to come back and do it.
Well, just think about he's now a star. Now, what does he do now?
He's in Omega School. He's going to, he stays on our Lauderdale campus and goes to school every day in a tech school to learn IT work. He's got an interest in computers, and he's doing really well in class. And he'll get some sort of certificate degree from there and hopefully get a job. And it's just really neat.
Well, I am sure that he is such, a model for your other students.
Yeah. Well, and you know what's so funny in that book, I use first name basis on those 50 graduate speeches. And Emily, the very first story in there, she's a kid from Oklahoma, came up in a really good family, ended up on drugs, toting a gun and driving a getaway car. She came into Faith Farm. She did really well. But then she went to Palm Beach Atlantic, and she just graduated 3 Fridays ago. They had a graduation, and Emily just graduated magna cum laude. She did the speech for the all of the schools.
I have goosebumps hearing
and we are
this.
so proud of her. She just has done incredible. So I love the Faith Farm success stories. They're just so neat, And it just and everybody's in trouble. I just got an email walking out the door to come down here to do this radio show today. A gal who's CEO of a company, a consulting firm for promotion purposes, and her bookkeeper just called her and says, "Okay, I may have to walk out anytime. My son came home. I haven't known where he was. He came, and he is totally addicted." She says, "And I need to get him in detox in a rehab center. Do you know anybody that can help?" And of course, she emailed me because I knew her. She was in a CEO group that I was with. And so I'm getting her a list of detox places that she can check. Some require insurance and some are county funded and don't. So and I don't know which are which. Of course, we're free. That's why we draw from all over the United States, because the price is right.
Yes, but also you just said something that you told us before, that if you cannot come there unless you have
we have to detox.
detox.
We're a church-based facility. We're a faith-based facility. We don't have any medical facilities, doctors or nurses or anything like that. The closest we come to that is testing people coming out every month. They get an 8-hour pass. We test them to make sure they don't test positive for drugs or alcohol, because we have a zero tolerance policy. Other than that, that's the only medical thing we really do.
My guest is Dean Webb. He's executive director of Faith Farm Ministries, and I would really very much like you to be able to contact them if you have any problems like you just heard, or if you want to help them. You can donate money, you can donate clothing, you can buy clothing there, you can buy furniture, new and used. I talk about Faith Farm Ministries no matter where I am in the country. I mean, we just came back from New York, and we stayed at someone's home who has a huge home, and I looked in his closet. He doesn't wear any of those suits anymore. He must have 20, 30 suits, and I told him, I said, "Boy, you need to, they won't come up here to get this, but I would love to see those suits go down to Faith Farm," because a lot of people are hoarders, as you know. We got to help, because that's how you make make the money to be able to support all those students. Yep. But I just wanted to tell everybody, if you go to their website, which is faithfarm.org, that's such an easy way, faithfarm.org. You'll see everything. You'll see their phone numbers. They have a beautiful place in Boynton Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Okeechobee, and you will see that a lot of the people working there are people who came there as students or they were addicts. Some people they weren't, but you have a great class of people there, the women, the men, who really are kind and understand what everyone's going through.
A lot of times when we give a tour on the Boynton campus, let's say a foundation will want to come check us out before they will honor a grant or give us a grant, and or some churches who want to put us in their mission budget because we're a mission on U.S. soil, so they know we get results. It's better than sending it off to South America and not see any converts for 3 years sometimes. But so a lot of people will take tours, and it's so funny. We'll be on our golf carts. We'll start at the back. We'll show them all the stuff. And by the time we get to the dock and where they're unloading furniture and clothing and pricing it to move it to the thrift store floor, Wayne, my assistant, he will say, "Okay, now how many employees do you think you've encountered, and all these people we've talked to, how many of them do you think were employees?" And they'll go, "I don't know, half of them, 3 of them." He'll say, "None of them. They're all students we're training in business to do good customer service." And this is especially shocking coming out of the call center because here's all these phones manned by these women in the program who are taking calls for donations, to schedule donations for us to pick them up that we put in the thrift store to sell to fund the program. So they're always trying. They say, "Are you kidding me? Except for us, there's not a single, nobody we met is an employee. They're all students." Because our first module in all of our comprehensive work training programs is customer service, and that's very important. Some of these people have not ever had. They've never dealt with that. Some of them have never had jobs. They don't have any training in customer service. So that's the first module on whether they're back and working in the kitchen, food service, or on the lawn care, or in the docks or trucks or recycling, wherever they're working. The first module is the same for all of those areas, and it's customer service.
Well, I wish you could send some of your training out to some other places. I was just at let's see what it was. It was a place, it was at the airport, and there was a woman. I went to buy something. She never even looked at me. She just looked at what she was doing, handed me the money. I wanted to say something to her, and I didn't. But there are so many companies that do need the training. Is it a training program that you actually have that someone that knows what they're doing does this?
Yeah, well, it's part of, like for the customer service, we have a set of 2 to 3 videos, and the video will show, because those are very professionally done. A lot of our people that are employees have originally come through the program, so they're not necessarily professionals either. So we try and even our docks and trucks, we have trucking firms that will give us the stuff on do it. Ashley Furniture, we're the 3rd largest Ashley Furniture dealer in South Florida. They come and help us do the furniture module. So, and will give us videos on loading trucks and stuff. So we work with people that will help us so we don't reinvent the wheel. I mean, why would I do something like that when there are professionals out there that already have videos on how to load a truck and how to
talk to people?
Yeah, how to talk to people, right?
Yeah, and also it happens in medical practices. You go to a medical practice, and sometimes the people are very nice. If they don't have that glass, you have to open up and wait there for someone to say something. Mm-hmm. You think that everyone knows about it, but they don't. But I am so appreciative that you are giving people who've never were part of that world. You can think maybe they were waitresses, or maybe they were mothers, or never got out of their house, or some were successful and maybe they were on a higher level. I always love that. You tell me a lot of times that people come in who've been executives, and yet you start them at the bottom, don't you?
Yeah.
What's the point of that? Tell me about that.
Well, here's the thing. Like we had a large hotel on Miami Beach. The leading chef, he had an alcohol problem, so they sent him into a recovery program. And it's funny, he skipped over Faith Farm, even though he's from Miami, and came to Boynton because he said he checked it out, and that's the most intense business. And he said, "I don't want to lose my edge, so I came here." Well, we started him on the lawn crew. He says, "You nuts? Why don't you put me in the kitchen?" And we said, we've been doing this 65 years now. Doesn't mean we're 100% correct, But we know that if we put I don't care if it's a tile layer, somebody lays tile, or a builder or a painter or a chef, if we put them in where they get their accolades and get their self-esteem from their work and how good they're at it, they don't concentrate on what they're really there for, which is improvement to change their life. So sweating on a 90-degree lawn crew will make you have a lot of time to think about what got you here. And a lot of times we'll put people on the lawn crew. We'll do something totally different from what they're really. And eventually we're not crazy. We'll use them, because we might have a floor to be tiled, and we certainly do 500,000 meals a year. So we definitely need a chef, but we don't always start them there because we want them to think about what got them here and the process to pull themselves out of this with our help. So, we don't always put them. We don't always put them in their skill sets, because if they do, then they get their accolades from that, and if they're good at it, then they don't ever think about the negative side of what got them here.
And does everyone get along as well as at the graduation, where they're just like they're brothers or sisters? I mean, yeah. Do they ever have fights? They're
like foxhole buddy. It's amazing. We take felons. Judges sentence people to us. We've the only felony that we don't take is child molestation. Anybody who's a sexual offender, we don't take into our program, because I require administrative staff and their families to live on campus. So I'm not going to require them to do that and then take in sexual. Other than that, we have taken people that have been in robberies and murders and everything else.
You've taken people who've been in murders.
Yes. Because when they usually, they say that 88% of the prison population in Florida is for drug-related crimes, stealing, killing, dealing, whatever. And so there's always a drug-related base to so many of the crimes. So because we're drug and alcohol renovation, rehab, whatever you call it, regeneration we call it, we will take these people. And the interesting thing, in October, we'll have been doing this 65 years. We've never had an altercation or a fight or anything on campus. And somebody asked me that. Why do you think? And I said, well, I don't really know. But I know 2 or 3 things. Number one, it's a faith-based organization. Everybody on campus are very spiritually oriented. They're there usually making a lot less money than they can make with a commercial rehab facility, a for-profit. They're making less money because they want to hold these people up and have them have the life change the way their lives were changed. And we have families living there. So there's a kind of a calming influence on the campus between the love and the passion to help people and the families living there. We just have not had any type of stuff like that in 65 years. I'm really amazed.
Wouldn't it be nice if we could put some of that into the prisons?
Yeah.
Have families and, have of course, the spirituality, but I meant that might make a big difference in how people are in prisons, because we hear the terrible things happen there.
Yeah. Well, the spiritual part, Chuck Colson has a ministry called Prison Fellowship, and it's a faith-based. In George Bush, when he was governor of Texas, before he was president, he allowed one whole wing to be a faith-based wing with Chuck Colson. And the recidivism rate just crashed. When those guys, they never went back to crime, ever. So he let him add another wing of faith-based. And so Chuck Colson added another wing. Well, while he was governor, George Bush said, my God, the faith-based organizations are doing so much better than so that's why when he became president, he leaned towards helping the nonprofits and the faith-based people, because they were doing more work. Matter of fact, we're a member of AGRM, Association of Gospel Rescue Missions, and we were up in Jacksonville for our week conference the first week of June. And they were, John Ashman, the president, was saying he was testifying before Congress, because one of the senators made his remark, says, well, the government's spending all this money for homeless people and helping the indigent, and why would we try and favor faith-based organizations? He said, you know what? I challenge that remark. I challenge the government to hire something done. You pick 10 or a dozen cities, and you pick whoever you want to do the survey, and you go see how much is being done by the government, how much is being done by Christian faith-based organizations. Well,
Did they?
Yeah. Well, they're in the middle of it. They contacted Baylor University in Texas and commissioned them to do it, and they picked and the government picked the 12 cities. The guy called John. He says, "Boy, this is going to be embarrassing. We've already done 2 towns. In one city, the government was doing nothing, and faith-based organizations were doing 100%. In the other city, they were doing 12%. Faith-based were doing 88%. He said, I don't know what we're going to find on the other 10 cities, and I don't know where the government money's going, but it's not going to help the homeless."
Now, that is
Isn't that
extraordinary.
interesting?
Where is that going to come out?
I don't know. I don't know how long it'll take them to do the research.
That is a wonderful
But John
thing.
says, I'm so confident that we're making a change in this, in people's lives, and the government's not, that you pick the cities, you pay for it, you pick who does the research, you pick your 10 cities or 12 cities, whatever, and you do it and just see. And Baylor said, they're not going to be happy with paying us to do this survey because we're not finding any help from the government hardly at all compared to the faith-based Christian
Isn't
organizations.
that interesting that there's such a difference in one to the other? And I'm sure, there are always some people who don't make it, but you're saying that generally speaking, it's the way that the homeless, then they have a reason because of their religion now, they have a reason to get better, not to wind up on the streets or whatever's making them homeless.
No, it's their heart, their God heart, their heart for God to help people. Is the passion driving force for these organizations to help people. It's not just getting a government grant or whatever, but the faith-based organizations they're finding are doing, like 100 times more than the government is in terms of.
Well, in this particular area where it is so serious, it's not as though you're just helping in hospitals. This is a very big psychological problem.
Yeah, and speaking of psychological, it's estimated, and I've seen estimates, Anita, all over the board, but it's estimated that at least 40 to 50% of homeless people on the street have mental problems. They have some sort of mental problem, and which they can't hold jobs. I mean, it's a really sad thing. I voted for Ronald Reagan, but the one thing that upset me, what he did is when he took away the funding for all the mental hospitals.
I remember that time.
It threw a lot of homeless people on the street.
What
the byproduct of that. I found that with every time the government tries to do something positive, there's always a cause and effect. They solve the area here, but then they create a problem over here. And as an outbreak of that solution, and supposedly solution. So that was one of the things. A lot of homeless people have mental problems. And we met people in missions at that convention. There were 1,100 people there representing over 300 missions around the country. And some of them are dealing with mental problems. They just said it's gotten so bad. We can help the homeless, but if we don't help these people with these mental problems. And then there was one lady who went to help the homeless, and I don't know what city this was in because I missed that part of her talk. I wasn't paying good attention. But she said when she was talking to some homeless people, a taxi cab pulled up and had this lady get out, and she got out in a hospital gown and shut the door. They drove off. So she turned around and says, "What's going on?" She says, "I don't have insurance. I have problems." And the hospital just chartered a cab and told them to bring me down here to 10th Street or whatever it was.
On the street
and let her out
nothing?
and just let her out. She had nothing but a hospital gown she was wearing.
I can't
So this
handle
lady's
that.
heart was so touched that she started raising money in a nonprofit to help the mentally challenged people that the hospitals didn't have the money to care for, to try and take them into a home. So she's got other missions that run across that to feed those people into her group because she's specifically raising foundation money for that to help people. So there are a lot of people helping that have a heart to help.
I know a lot of people do, and I know that you have become kind of a celebrity around the world, probably with other faith-based organizations trying to help people with addictions. And have you been able to check on any of them that have learned things from you, Dean?
I haven't followed up. AGRM had me do a breakout session called Micro Business Macro Impact. And we had 73 people there. And I went through how Faith Farm uses micro business enterprise to fund ourselves instead of doing fundraising. And because everybody, it's a lot of fundraising is drying up. People are struggling. And we had 73 missions there that key people attended. Well, they already are lining up to come see us. Last year, we had over 30 missions come from the head of Kansas City, the guy from Pittsburgh, the guy in California, the guy from New Mexico, came to see how we do microbusiness enterprise at Faith Farm to fund our program. So I expect we'll be deluged after this. And of course, if this NBC story hits,
it's absolutely wonderful. I am always in awe of you, and I just want anyone who hasn't been to Faith Farm or you don't know anything about it by this time with all the radio shows that Dean's done here, you should, unless we always have some new people. But you can also read glorious articles written by Judy Walters every month in Boomer Times, and they're so good. I could read them over and over again, and it's so inspiring. But just go to faithfarm.org, and you'll see everything. You'll see phone numbers to call in case you do have a loved one that you want to encourage to come. You can't tie them up and get them there. They have to want to be there. But I'm always amazed at the stories that you tell me, because I don't drink alcohol, and so I haven't really been around it myself, but I know a lot of people have, and it's just destroyed families. But as you said, a lot of times people go and they either can't afford a place, or it's not a good place for them, and they wind up back, and then many wind up dying on the streets.
Yeah. We had a gentleman, he was, his nationality was South Korean. He came in, and the intake officer asked what was that mark around his neck, and they were rope burns where he tried to hang himself and failed, but the rope burns just left a permanent mark on his neck. And he came into our program at Boynton, and his life was radically changed. He became a Christian. He wants to serve God. He just and his wife, who had wanted nothing to do with him because of his drugs and alcohol, he was medicated. He'd had a horrible life. I can't tell you how bad his life was, but anyway. She came and he heard she was in the parking lot, so he went out and sat in the car, and she said, and she asked him to sign the divorce papers. She said, I can't live with anymore. So they were sitting there talking. She says, okay, you're not the same person that came in here. And so they were talking, and so bottom line is she started reading a scripture, and he ended up quoting it. And anyway, he was so changed, she sat there and tore up the divorce papers.
Oh my goodness.
Right in the car.
Well, stories like this are so thrilling, and we love to have you come and do this all the time with us. And thank you. We'll be waiting to see that show. Thanks so much, Judy.
Okay, thanks for having me on.